Okay, we are moving on to step 3. Step 3, as I walk you through this, it's going to seem a little bit why we felt like we did this in the fall, and you may have. And we are coming back and revisiting it for a reason, and that reason is we want to make sure that Shannon and Sid and Sonny all have their models set exactly the way that you as teachers have informed them that need to be set, and that the categories are called out correctly and whatnot. So this is an opportunity for people to go back and revamp, revise if needed, and if not, just leave it this year and know that these 2 steps will happen next year before you actually set your model. Step 3, what we're looking at here is we are looking at alignment of measures to our goals. If you look at Cite 2.1 and 2.3, teachers already are developing quality assessments to assess world-class outcomes, to assess those 4 C's. So you should have those measures in place already to assess those world-class outcomes and 4 C's, those measures. The questions we want to ask ourselves: how will we know if students have learned? What will I do as a teacher to get them there? What evidence do I need, and which evidence will I accept to know that students have understood and transferred the student learning objective process, the learning in the way that we intended to be transferred and understood? Pink box facilitator, the pink box, whoever you are, you are going to pull out the sheet that has this at the bottom of it, please, and pass that around. So you have a few seconds to do that. When we start looking at our alignment of our goals to our measures, the purpose of this step is really to see, are we measuring all those success criteria that we just laid out or we've laid out previously in our classrooms? Do our assessments match those? Do they align? And if not, what can we do? Now, we know, we are fully aware of this, that going into this year and this process, you may just be using MAP as your assessment. You may just be calling that good. And so this will tell us where the gaps are, and you will be able to work on filling those gaps for next year. But if you look at the example, it says create meaning strategically in writing. My success criteria are listed on the left: clarity, structure, style, audience, and conventions. And if I am using MAP and I am only using MAP data, I am assessing structure really well. I'm assessing conventions really well, but I have missed 3 of my 5 success criteria. So now what? I go back into my toolbox, my assessment box, and I say, what do I have that can be used to assess the rest of these? What can fill in the blanks? So I have a writing performance task that I use. And when I give that, I use the same success criteria earlier in the year. Maybe throughout the year I'm using those, progress monitoring, and then at the end of the year I use those as well. That will fill in all of those success criteria. I've aligned everything. That's plenty to put into your Cite 6 Pi. But again, if this year you only have the MAP data, we're going to go with it. Next year, we're going to fill in those gaps. So don't get too worked up if you're in that spot right now. So we are going to grab the index cards on the table. You'll need about 4, maybe 5. I don't know that you'll need that many, but you'll need a couple index cards. And then we're going to go back and forth here. I'm going to ask you to do something, and then I'll give you time to do it. Okay. On the front of each index card, you are going to write the title of an assessment that you might use to assess your goal that you called out on your SLO paper. Remember, this is practice. You're not tied to this. It is what it is. But we're going through a process. On the front of the card, you might write, what do I have here? I might use MAP, so I'm going to write that down. I may use a department assessment. I'm going to write that down. It's a common assessment. I may use a semester exam to assess that world-class outcome. I may assess or use a CWRA performance task. I may use PARC. That may be the sum total of the assessments I'm going to write down today. Okay? Questions? We're good? Go ahead and write your assessments that align to the goal that you wrote down. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next step. On the back of the index card, you're going to write 4 things down. You need at least 4 lines. Leave yourself some space. And this is because it's going to go back to your principals. So it's tagging. Tagging the information here. On the back, write your name and content, please. On each one of those, we're going to do one as a group, and then you can do the rest. Okay, second line. Here are your choices. Your choices on the second line are as follows. You have to identify where is this assessment coming from, where is it taking place. So is it a classroom assessment? I'm using this in my classroom with my kids. Is it a department team assessment, which you may, if it's a common assessment, but you want to own your classroom data, then put classroom/team. You can call it both here. And third choice, is it a school-wide assessment? Meaning, does every kid in 7th grade do exactly the same thing? Does every kid in 8th grade do exactly the same thing? You might have a school-wide writing prompt. So first line, name, content. Second line, classroom, team, school-wide, or is it a state assessment? State assessment would be CMAS, would be TCAP, would be PARC. If you are using MAP, let's call it a classroom assessment right now. You are likely to own that data. Third line, is it internally developed or was it a third party purchased and used exactly as is? Because I want to own my map data. There's
the logistics side, that inspired side, so that teacher can continue to go through the slow process and themselves, and you as an administrator are setting.
If you call it a school-wide assessment, Sonny, you as the administrator have to sit down and set targets for every single kid. You want to call it a classroom. Okay? That's really how the tool was developed, and we want to honor the process. Okay, third line, internally developed, or is it a third party? MAP is a third party. If you have a textbook that you purchased, a math program, and you are using their assessments exactly as they're given, third party. If STAR, you guys don't use STAR, plan test in the past would have been a third party. The last line is it an interim, is it a summative, or is it both? Do I use it summatively in my unit, but it's an interim for monitoring student growth? So those are the 4 things I want you to write on each of your index cards, please. Give you a couple minutes to, I will. First one, class, or name and content. Second one, where's this assessment living? Classroom, team, school, or state. Third one, is it internally developed or was it a third party? Fourth one, is it an interim, a summative, or perhaps both? Okay, give you 2 minutes to do that. Okay, we should have those index cards completed. If you can find the dots on your table, there's red stickers and green stickers. Here's the deal. If it is a required assessment, so we told you in the fall that Colorado Growth Model is required. A classroom interim is required by the state. So how is that called out in your model? And principals can jump in here and help the teachers know what their model is. And if it's required, put the red dot on it. If it's optional, it's one you could put in. You don't have to, then put a green dot on that, please. So sticker them up. Red is required, green is optional. All right, everything should be stickered up now. Next step. On your legal paper, you've written your goal, you have your success criteria, you have on the right side the alignment to the measures. You are going to go in and align which assessments you have on your index cards. Remember, we're playing today. And align it to what exactly are they assessing, which success criteria are they assessing at this moment. and see, do you have gaps? It's really that reflective process. So align that to your measure. Align the assessment to your goal on the SLS sheet, please. All right. You have your assessment named. You have your assessment tagged. You have whether it's required or optional. You've aligned it to the measure or your success criteria. And at this point in time, there are these lovely little buckets on your table, and the buckets have different labels on them. One says statewide, third-party, interim, or summative. And then we have classroom, third-party, interim, or summative. If you would take a minute, get up or pass the buckets, seemed to work last time in this small space, put your assessment in the appropriate buckets, please. All right. That, my friends, is step 3. Yeehaw!